Hi, hello. I want to do an update on Lodi for you. Particularly want to do it for you because Next Generation was one of the places that we came from in Lodi. We started in the bosom of one of your meetings. At that meeting, back in early 2010, we opened out some big questions about what Gestalt might have to offer, our ideas about organising, leading and coaching in organisational settings. We then went on to look at our own organisation, GISC, and what we thought we could learn from the way Gestalt practitioners were organising themselves. And at Lodi 3, at the end of last year, we had a look at our theoretical roots, Gestalt psychology and Gestalt therapy. Running alongside, there was an examination of practice that was taking the form of writing for and presentation to the AAGT, and also the writing of a paper for the Gestalt Review. Okay, it should be published any time now, a healthcare case. Now the idea that we're coming back to is the idea that we have a brilliant theoretical construct for organisation, and that brilliant concept is the concept of Gestalt form, and that we need to revisit it in the light of the new situations within which we're practicing, to both reinforce our existing practice and also challenge it in appropriate ways. So the idea that of Gestalt form is that there is a figure and a ground in dynamic relationship. The figure and ground parts form a dynamic interactive whole where the sum of those parts does not fully represent the whole. The whole is more than the sum of those two simple parts because of the dynamic relationship. So this idea is what I want to offer you to think about again. It's where we've got to with Lodi. We are moving on to take a look at the implications of that in Lodi 4 in Sweden. I hope as many of you who are able will come. It'll be fantastic to see you there and for us to do the next stages together. I'm also hoping, even if you can't come, there's going to be some contact that will arise out of this. So I want to leave you with an idea. It's a simplification of a whole process, but here we go. Starts with the way in which Gestalt therapy has tended to focus on the figure. Not a complete truth, but it's one that I want to offer you. Gestalt therapy has tended, partly because it came out of a 1960s revolutionary era, towards an intuitive grasp of the risks to human freedom and happiness of being stuck in inappropriate norms. Living life habitually in a form of quiet desperation. So the battle cry from Gestalt therapy was to come to one's senses, live life in the present with choice. In this sense, Gestalt therapy stands within a tradition of mindfulness that emphasizes the difficult task of living in the moment as a way of coming alive to one's own existence, or Western Zen, as it's been called. This orientation was powerfully reinforced in the work of Fritz Perls, and is given its most comprehensive expression in his collaboration with Ralph Hefferlein and Paul Goodman when they wrote Gestalt Therapy together in the late 40s and published it in 1951. Now the authors took up the idea of perceptual figure ground formation from the Cashout Psychologists and applied it more generally to human psychology. See the introduction to Perls, Hefferlein and Goodman. Now in doing so, they emphasized figure formation as a powerful metaphor for contact, the multi-stage process of moving into contact with something other than oneself. They said, speaking about figure formation, the object of attention becomes a more and more unified, bright, sharp figure against a more and more empty, unnoticed, uninteresting ground. This form of unified figure against an empty ground has been called a good Gestalt. Page 56. Now, analysing figure ground in this way is a distortion of the Gestalt psychologist's work. They were concerned not only with how attention was focused, but also with how it was informed by backgrounds, even when those backgrounds were not being attended to. This needn't matter so far as Pearls, Heverlein and Goodman is concerned. They're clearly not attempting a tight interpretation of Gestalt psychological research, but such a presentation, such a favouring of the figure and a emptying of the ground has consequences when Gestalt form is removed from its immediate context. And what I want us to think about is how we can reinvigorate the notion of ground. It will give us fresh resources to look at organisation. So, the Cashout Psychologist. While the withdrawal from visibility of the ground is a perceptual fact of figure formation, the Gestalt psychologists also found that the ground continues to influence despite this withdrawal, despite its invisibility. Okay? Influence is not the same as visibility, but it's not clear how this continues to happen. That's the point. Now, this is interesting. In terms of Gestalt psychology, it positioned a sort of slow-burning contradiction at the heart of what they were trying to do. So while the psychologists were avowedly seeking to make a science of psychology, the mystery of the ground's continuing influence provides a denial of positive principles. A Gestalt whole cannot be understood by attending only to what is touchable, concrete, and measurable. Unwittingly, Gestalt psychology lets back in the enchanting idea that human being, including our psychology, is mysterious. Now, the figure is, of course, seductive. So it doesn't take many quotations like those from Pearls, Heverlein and Goodman to cause us to forget the ground. And that happens sometimes in our practice. We tend to notice, for example, an inclination to notice a focus on present configurations of meaning, and in consequence to stress the differences between people, the multiple realities. This is at best only half the story. The differentiation of individual figure formation is accompanied by continuities and traditions that bind people together into communities that are grounded in largely hidden loyalties and shared practices. These continuities are no less real for not being figural. They are fundamental to understanding organisation and the undisclosed traditions that bind organisations together in a shared history. Okay. We can also see that on occasions we tend to focus on what is brightest and ignore those things that are vague, intuited, just felt from the boundary, as it were. So I want to draw on this idea that the ground might need reinvigorating, re-remembering in some way, and offer it for us. In doing so, I'll be recognising that my presentation, relying on Pearls, Heverlein and Goodman, is not the whole thing that happens within Gestalt practice. So let's return to the mystery bit. How does the ground work? Pearls, Heverlein and Goodman has its more or less permanent absence, because life is a series of rapidly rising and falling figures. Now we want to speak in organisational terms. So how does the ground inform our idea of organising? To explain it, we have to think about how ground is constructed and then how it continues to work. To do this, I want to develop our ideas around integration, Gestalt ideas around integration. You remember that integration is the opposite side of figure formation, associated with the decay of the figure. We can see integration as the movement of experience from a first-person event to become a kind of abstraction that retains its essential form even when the particular circumstances are forgotten. It might be better to think of this as sedimentation rather than integration. This captures the idea of it settling down into habit or norm, how we do things. Ground is then made up of residues from sedimentation, the essences of previous events, previous contact. On Lodi 3, we named this as institution because we were experimenting with trying to draw the language back into more familiar organisational territory, and institution felt closer to organisation. So, by this account, things are progressively instituted into shared norms. Okay? Institution provides continuity of organisation sustained in the residue that remains from the process of cumulatively contacting an environment. These residues may be made explicit through deliberate design, such as new processes or policies, but they may also affect organising practice